Welcome everyone to today's webinar on circular economy and circularity in action. I'm thrilled to have you all join us and as we delve into the transformative concept of circular economy and its impact on waste reduction. Before we embark on this insightful journey, let me introduce our organization, the Global Network for Sustainable Development, GNSD. I'm Shubham Trivedi and I'm honored to be here as representative of GNSD. We are lead partner for the Circular Economy and Waste Reduction Team in Changemaker 20 Summit. The Changemaker 20 Summit is organized as part of the G20 presidency of India's Civil 20 and U20 working groups. GNSD is a non-profit registered in Arizona, US. At GNSD, our mission is to connect youth worldwide and empower them to be catalysts of change through dynamic initiatives to educate students about environmental and social sustainability. While emphasizing the significance of non-violent conflict resolution, our belief in learning by doing drives us to engage students in community projects through our peace and sustainability clubs established in schools across the globe. Professor Narula is a distinguished sustainability scholar who has made profound impact on business sustainability in India over her illustrious 25-year career span. Formerly the head of business and sustainability at TERI School of Advanced Studies, she has been a trailblazer in sustainability education. Her expertise extends to innovative use of ICTs for sustainable development, earning her prestigious accolades such as the ProsperNet Scopus Young Scientist Award. Professor Narula's contribution extend beyond academia as she has played a pivotal role in shaping central government initiatives and has supervised numerous pieces on agribusiness sustainability and corporate social responsibility. Her multidimensional efforts encompass academia, research, and consultancy, which have significantly raised awareness and built capacity among diverse stakeholders, all towards shaping a more sustainable future. It is with great pride that I share that Professor Sapna Narula has recently been awarded the India Responsible Leaders Award 2023 for her exceptional contribution to the field of sustainability and CSR. So with our organization's commitment to youth empowerment, Professor Narula's remarkable achievements, and our involvement in Changemaker 20 Summit, we are excited to explore the opportunities and challenges in circular economy and waste reduction. Let's kickstart this webinar with the aim of inspiring positive change and building a more sustainable tomorrow. Without more ado, handing over to you, Dr.
So a very good morning to all of you, esteemed participants, distinguished guests, and dedicated change makers. I am profoundly delighted to stand before you today as we embark on a pivotal session delving into the heart of circular economy and waste reduction, circularity in action. We all know that circular economy is something that we need in today's world. This gathering marks a significant juncture where minds converge, ideas flourish, and transformative actions find their foundation. Yesterday, we had a very good inaugural session with the chain makers coming from across the globe, as well as G20 Sherpas from different countries coming to inaugurate and mark the ceremony open. Your presence here resonates with the shared commitment to drive change, and it is honor to lead the crucial discourse as the president of Global Network for Sustainable Development. Our mission is youth for sustainable development. So we empower young change makers through our various programs such as sister schools, peace clubs, and sustainability clubs. In a world where we have a lot of material consumption and it is projected to increase and surge, and equivalent greenhouse gas emissions are coming up, the call for collective action resounds more urgently than ever. So the youth, with their unwavering determination and fresh perspectives, they hold a pivotal role in this transformative journey. They epitomize the conscience of a new era, one that demands a heightened sustainability, challenges established norms, and propels innovation in every facet of our lives. The GNSD's resolute mission to connect and empower young individuals worldwide is a beacon of hope in these dynamic times. Through circular innovation inspired by the vigor of youth activists and innovators, we bear witness to the potential to reshape economies, rejuvenate our environment, and foster inclusive social progress. So this particular session is to inaugurate the entire circular economy theme, about which GNSD has proudly partnered with Connecting Dreams Foundation under the umbrella of this event. So over a period of next 5 days, we will be having various events. After this inaugural event, we will be having a panel discussion in the evening. Then we have photo and video competition. We also have a master class on green hydrogen, and besides that, we have a workshop on sustainable behavior change. Looking at all these things, I think it is very important for all the G20 nations to take action in circular economy, and the youth are the major powerhouse to make that happen. So that is where the significance of this event becomes very important, right? So I am very eager to engage in profound discussions, share experiences, and collectively envision a world where waste is minimized, resources are optimized, and prosperity is defined. So today, our deliberations will have the potential to transcend these walls, lighting a global movement that redefines consumption patterns, production processes, and our relationship with the environment. So with gratitude for your acceptance and also your dedication towards the cause, I extend a heartfelt welcome to you all. And let us chart a purposeful action, ignite innovation, and drive the transformation towards circular economy. So with these words, I would like to introduce the people who are present on the panel, all the esteemed panelists who have done a lot of work in this area. Our chief guest for the event, who will be joining in a while from now, is Professor Nava Subramaniam, who has around 40 years of experience of working in Australian University in the area of sustainability, ESG, and CSR. So right now, she's the dean of Amrita Business School, and she's renowned worldwide for her research in corporate governance, SDGs, management controls, and accounting profession. With leadership roles at RMIT and Deakin University in Australia, she has secured notable grants from the Australian Research Council for Governance and Carbon Emission Studies. Her impactful research graces esteemed journalists such as Accounting, Auditing, and Accountability Journal, and she serves on editorial boards of various journals. We also have Dr. Prabjot Sodhi, who has a very diverse experience with 40 years of diverse expertise. He's the Senior Program Director of Circular Economy at the Center for Environment Education since June 2021. We all know him. We know that he has contributed a lot while his stint at UNDP. He played an instrumental role in taking circular economy agenda ahead in India, and he has collaborated with notable donors including Coca-Cola, Hindustan Unilever, and HDFC Bank. His rich career spans circular economy strategies, systems thinking, EPR, and partnerships with government and civil society. Prabjot's accolades include Talented Conservator Award and MBE in 1998. He has authored Low Carbon Lifestyles and holds key roles in the committees, including Niti Aayog and UN Global Plastics Team. And he has also been conferred as Professor of Practice by C.V. Raman University in 2022. I welcome you, Dr. Sodhi, to this panel discussion, and we are very thankful for having accepted our invite. We have Amit Tuteja. Dr. Amit Tuteja needs no introduction. He is the dedicated catalyst for positive change and a strong advocate for potential of youth to drive impactful transformations worldwide. This particular summit has been conceptualized by Dr. Amit Tuteja and has been implemented under his leadership. As the founder of Connecting Dreams Foundation, he has nurtured numerous young change makers, and this is why I admire him. He is one change maker who has raised many change makers, hundreds and thousands of change makers across Delhi University and across many universities in India and abroad. So his commitment to creating a more just and equitable society is manifested through the innovative 3C model of change making. He is also a recognized TEDx speaker. So I also welcome Dr. Amit Tuteja to this session. Stephen Daniel, who is a secretary of the board of directors of the Global Network for Sustainable Development. I'm sorry that he had to be awake at 5:30 a.m. in his own country, but he has been a wonderful colleague. Has been working with me for last 4 years, and he has established he is actually he has called himself Dr. Progress, because he works for the progress of people in the at the grassroots level. He founded Leaders Club, Society for Child's Educational Development, Green UCU, Worldwide Progress, and Progress Farms. So he's serving Nigeria's government in National Youth Service, and he's a regional coordinator, and he promotes SDGs through peace and sustainability clubs in African high schools. He is passionate about development and sustainability. Stephen focuses on education and agriculture. Shubham Trivedi, again my colleague from GNSD, and he will be opening this through his presentation. He'll be opening this theme. He is Vice President India Partnerships at GNSD and has experiences in research, think tanks, and youth empowerment. In his current capacity, he plays a pivotal role in fostering partnerships across India, further amplifying GNSD's commitment to driving sustainable progress. So, with these words, I welcome you all. I welcome all the participants, and I'm sure that we will have a very fruitful discussion. Professor Nawa, I welcome you. Although I introduced you in the beginning, and thank you so much. And with these words, I invite Shubham for making his presentation, the curtain raiser to this event.
Hello. Hello to the esteemed guests. I'll be presenting, sharing my screen now.
Thank you. Sorry, technological hiccups. So I'm here anyway, finally.
Yeah. So the theme circular economy and waste reduction. I'll be talking about circularity in action today. So the need to move towards a circular economy, in which consumption of ecological resources is equal or less than what the planet can regenerate, has been discussed for years, but has not been sufficiently deployed. The need for circular economy can be summarized in the following 3 points: environmental sustainability. The circular economy reduces waste, minimizes resources extraction, and lowers GHG emissions, making it a strategy to mitigate the environmental impact of linear consumption patterns and combat climate change. Resource efficiency, by promoting the 3 R's of circular economy, it maximizes the value extracted from raw material and enhancing resource efficiency and reducing pressure on natural resources. So there's a graph here which shows the domestic material consumption. We see that the extraction of raw materials doubled between 1990 and 2017, showing the pressure on the extraction of raw materials, while it is to double again by 2060. So coming to the third point, economic resilience, a circular economy could help add $4.5 trillion in additional economic output, and it not only makes supply chain more resilient by reducing emissions and making them compliant to legislation, but also creates jobs like repair, remanufacturing, recycling, and others. So the challenges for circular economy are, as the data showed in the last slide, coupling of economic growth and material use, the growing of material stock, driving customers towards green transition, and waste generation, which differ in different countries. And as of today, only 20% of the total waste gets recycled and 80% goes to landfill, creating more pressure on the natural resources. So the opportunities for circular economy lies in resource demand reduction, economic enhancement, job creation, environmental and health safeguarding, and climate goal achievement. Till now, G20 has progressed in the circular economy phase, and to increase resource efficiency, most G countries have adopted EPR scheme, and which is also the main popular scheme in majority of the G20 countries. Other instruments to facilitate transition to circular economy has been the green public procurement. It has been seen that almost 12% of the GDP comes from public procurement. So green public procurement plays an instrumental role in facilitating transition towards circular economy. Other regulatory instruments for circular efficiency include recycling targets, product standards, and deposit return systems. Bans and restrictions have also worked as regulatory instruments for resource efficiency. Consumer awareness has also helped circular economy, but it has been mostly seen in the global north, including SWAN Eco label as in the Nordic countries and energy labels. G20 established circular economy came into the G20 dialogue in about 2017, and the subsequent presidencies touched upon the issues such as circular economy finance and marine plastic litter in 2019, and then circular carbon economy in 4R framework, including removal of carbon in 2020. Recently, resource efficiency circular economy industry coalition was launched in India in 2023. These have been the strategies which has been adopted by G20 countries with the year. As I already said, mostly G20 countries have focused on extended producers' responsibility, which can be also seen here. Like as CSOs and part of C20, what role can we play or GNSD can play? Other civil society organizations are following: advocacy and policy influence, public awareness, education, collaboration, partnership, data collection, research. There's a need for evidence-based action, and then there is monitoring and accountability. Whatever we are doing needs to be measured, monitored, and people need to be held accountable. These roles CSOs can play. These are the points that I would like to leave the others to ponder for other speakers. Circular economy on the current trajectory, is it on the right path? And if it is so, what strategies can expedite the progress? And as it was seen from the data, economic growth is coupled with material consumption. So how can we effectively decouple economic growth from material consumption while advancing circular economy? And circular economy should not be limited to just G20 countries, but also should include other countries, including Global South. So what can be the ways to approach this? And how can we make this transition more equitable and inclusive? And the other point is, what approaches can be employed to foster the necessary behavioral shift, as circular economy also requires a behavioral change for adoption among youth. So these are the points that I would like to leave other speakers with. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Shubham, and thank you for bringing out the points for today's discussion. I would now request Dr. Radhika Mittal to present her slides, and because she is doing a wonderful work on sustainability communication. While she was a colleague at TERI, she was working on sustainability communication, and then she joined PhD in the same area. Over to you, Dr. Radhika.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sapna. Very happy to be here. So I have been researching the field of sustainability communication through various formats. In the sense, I've looked at food, I've looked at climate communication, and mainly examining media narratives quite globally. So I worked with TERI many years back, but my PhD was from Macquarie University in Australia, and I currently teach at the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So what I want to bring to you is the perspective of how do we talk about sustainability? What are the ways in which we can communicate sustainability, and you can apply it? And I'm using sustainability as a broad term, of course. I'm wondering, sorry, is my voice echoing across, or no, now it's not? Okay. I want to talk about stories for sustainability. How can we feel, share, and action them, and think about them from the perspective of personal engagement as well as engagement with our teams, and then finally leading to behavior change. So these are just some nuggets to put out there. They need to be adapted to benefit each area of sustainability, whether you think about circular economy, you think about waste reduction, and so on. So I wonder if Amitji, you can share my slides, because I can't seem to do that. Let me talk a little bit about the agenda then while we're putting up the slides. We'll talk about communication with yourself, what values you abide by, because communication is essentially about values, and you'll find this a recurrent theme in my presentation. And we'll also talk about communication with your team and communication with others around you. So, yeah, if we go on to the next slide, please. This is about, let me start with a story, and we'll stay on this slide for a minute. So I grew up in a relatively secure middle income, it's my story of the 3 Rs, and I think many of you would be familiar with it. I'm sure you have also experienced it. It just depends on the age group that you're in. But I don't see too many youngsters here, because they are the ones who would have to think about whether this story applies to them. My father worked with the government. We were middle income family. We didn't have to deal with any scarcity. So this is a story of the 3 Rs where you don't have poverty. I grew up watching my mother practice the 3 Rs that a lot of households in India, and also in a previous era in the West, automatically do, and they do it almost intuitively. So our clothes, and if you can see this screen, then you can see that there are, I've tried to depict the journey of fashion of one piece of cloth, actually. So say my school uniform, our clothes were stitched by the local tailor. We would walk into a local textile market, pick out the right materials, hand them over to one of the many local tailoring shops. And often it was, just a few days, and then the outfit was ready. So say the uniform was ready, you go pick up the finished product. And you see a Singer tailoring machine here, which is, I think, was a fixture in many households at that time, maybe even today, or maybe it has just become archaic today. But essentially, this Singer machine was a fixture in our household, and my mother or some other visiting relative would mend and sew and repair any garment that needed a little pick-me-up. So the uniform was not discarded just because it had a little tear or it was looking a little bit yellow. There were many ways of reviving that piece of cloth, that outfit. And I'm sure you remember this as well. So after the garment had finally run its course, say you outgrew it as a child, as you grew up, or it was really, in tatters, then it would still be thoroughly cleaned and then repurposed into various cloths, right? So that you require for household purposes, maybe a dusting cloth or something to wipe down your windows or appliances with, maybe even making a cloth bag for grocery shopping. And this was before the age of plastic and polyester as a component of everything that we use today, right? The uses for just cotton cloth were multiple and endless, and this cloth was only actually discarded when it was completely and utterly unusable. So a few meters of cloth picked up from a local textile vendor ran its life cycle many times over. And the same logic was applied, as you would know, to glass bottles, newspapers, all forms of material things that are in the house. And the joy of, even today, for those of you, and I know I do it every time I come home to India, I go to the local textile market and get traditional garments stitched by a tailor. And the joy of deciding on a design and seeing the final product with its flourishes, the embroidery, small buttons, small things that you cannot match with the heavy pleasure of shopping at the latest sale in a supermarket or in a big department store. So this idea of fashion, because fashion is a big part of circularity, has stayed with me from childhood. Although today we are moving towards a culture, we have moved, where the average person buys 60% more clothing than they actually need and keeps them for half as long as they did 15 years ago. Even during the pandemic, people indulged in guilt shopping or loneliness shopping or whatever it was. So there's a shift in values, and the shift in values is apparent. And communication at its heart actually begins with values. So if we can go on to the next slide, I want to talk about how, and I want to go to values with you. Amitji, could you move to the next slide, please? So I've already said this, we can move on to the next slide. This is what I'm going to talk about. And before I go into values, I want to talk about what is sustainability, which all of you well know, but it seems to have become this wicked problem. It's also something which is buzzy and fuzzy and ambiguous in many ways, because it's such a big word. What exactly does sustainability mean? It's also kind of a new buzzword. And if we look at the next slide, we can see the sustainability. We want to ask ourselves, is it, and we can keep clicking, is it a problem of economic growth, or is it a problem of over moralizing? Because these are the narratives we find, oh, sustainability, we need to think about economic growth in the context of sustainability. Or is it about you need to do this, or you can or you cannot do this? So this idea of moralizing that comes in with sustainability communication or with thinking and discussing sustainability. And if we go to the next slide, we see that sustainability is actually more a concept of regeneration and restoration, all of which ties in with the circular economy idea. And it is also looked upon as an alternative to the neoliberal capitalistic economic model that we have adopted over the years. It's a more of a normative framework that we are trying to change. And we're trying to find new human nature equations, new ecocultural identities through it. What is the platform through which sustainability as it's understood and sustainability as it's practiced is kind of pulled through? That platform is actually multiple platforms. They're politics, corporates, media, and these create an atmosphere which is mired in uncertainty, and especially for individuals, causing both emotional and cognitive detachment from the concept. So if we go to the next slide, I want to talk about, next slide please, the stories, the narratives that feel the sustainability story. If we think about the stories that are told about sustainability, we will find three prominent narratives, and a lot of research has linked to this. The first narrative is that of the sunshine perspective. So the sunshine perspective is a story of growth and progress. It's basically a perspective that talks about an alternative normative framework. Like I said, it's also about balancing social, economic, and ecological interests. So whenever you read a media story about technological utopia or renewable energy, you can see it's a sunshine perspective, that we will tackle this through doing this, perhaps rainwater harvesting, perhaps just the idea of building more solar. And that's a sunshine perspective. But it doesn't take into account what are the problems that could come in wake of this, because it's not talking about, say, less consumption or reusing. It's simply talking about more in some ways. Could somebody contact Amit ji? So that's the sunshine story. And if we think that's a very prominent narrative in the media. As I'm talking about this, I'm sure you can identify it through the kind of news stories you read. Now, if you see what is another narrative, that is the narrative of inconvenient truth. So we remember the Al Gore documentary, of course, but it's really a narrative of environmental degradation and how it's the opposite of sunshine story, how we have ruined the environment and, apocalypse now, and also talking about how we need to really restrict our consumption. We need individual sacrifices. We need to, it's about taking away the freedom of the market. So it's gone in that direction. So this is the sunshine perspective, and this is now the inconvenient truth perspective. You just have to keep clicking once more. And it's more about people if you see this little image here, people like to believe a reassuring lie over an inconvenient truth. It's easier to tell ourselves that everything will be okay rather than think about the problems that, the contribution or the sacrifices we have to make. These are just stories. I'm not judging anything on it. I'm just giving an example. And if we move further, then we see can we go to the next slide? The story of the revolution. This story is rare. It's talking about cultural change, innovation, doing things differently. It's a bit contradictory to the general approach of narrative that the communication that you find around. And it's complex. It also requires more reading, more interpretation, more reflection. It's about ethical considerations. And I assume that this is the kind of story we want to tell about the circular economy or about any kind of action that we want taken, because this is a story that might inspire behavior change. And can we go forward? So I want to then say, okay, what are the barriers and challenges? And you can keep clicking till we get some text on the screen. So that's it. So what are the barriers and challenges for sustainability communication? In the current media ecosystem, we're living in a completely digitally disrupted society. So everything is everywhere. And although we are interconnected, we are boundary agnostic. We don't have any filters or boundaries, and we are overloaded with information. Plus, we have very short attention spans. So the idea of and we don't trust the media, or we don't trust communication by governments and so on. So the reliability factor is also low, which means we're constantly engaging with these barriers when we're trying to communicate anything in this media ecosystem, or even interpersonally in some ways. So what then constitutes public engagement? How can you take forward public engagement in a manner that tackles these barriers? First, and these can only be some guidelines. It cannot be a completely, clearly focused format. But the first thing we need to do is consider what are the goals, who are the people involved, and what is the format in which we want to communicate. And most importantly, and this is what I will touch upon from the next slides, is we need to think about our own knowledge, expectations, beliefs, and values. No, can we go back? Sorry, for a minute. So when we think about our values and our beliefs, and we think that we are active contributors to a communication. It's not simply about putting out a press release. It's not a one-way flow of messages, right? The meaning that we are creating is constantly renegotiated by other actors in that scenario. And they're adding their interpretations, their values, their concerns, and then there is no filtering mechanism. So it's being broadcast in multiple ways. So our message has to be that much simpler, clearer, actionable. And if we go to the next slide, we are thinking now, going back to, next slide, please, the values, right? And what are our values? So this person here is Louise Bourgeois. She's a famous French artist whose parents ran a tapestry restoration business. So she's a very famous artist, but her whole perspective was about thinking about, say, clothing or fashion in a different way. And the reason I put this there is just to think about what your values are. And she says, okay, sewing is an attempt to keep things together and make things whole. That's much deeper than just saying, oh, I want to get something stitched. There is a value attached to it. Clothing is an exercise in memory, right? How do I feel when I did something, when I wore that? What is a signpost for me? So you can apply this to every small thing in your life. What do I feel when I segregate waste? You know, how does it, what are the goalposts, the signposts that inspire this for me? So values are built through our culture, our life circumstance, right? Creating artistic material out of waste products. We do that with children in school, and some people just do it for even a living. So there are values attached to that. And if we go to the next slide, then we're thinking about, next slide, please. We're thinking about how, and here are, no, the slide before this. So we're talking about how to reflect and refine on our own values. And this is what I would urge participants in this, youth especially, to do and to think about is, okay, what are your values? Why are you in this field of sustainability? What moves you? What influences you? And what are you personally impacted by, and what impact you want to have? These are then the building blocks of the story that each individual will tell. And if we go to the next slide, then we're thinking about the inner narrative that we are trying to shape. And the inner narrative is about self-awareness and self-talk, and thinking about how to get rid of negative language, because we have a lot of climate anxiety. We are also in a situation where we are saying, okay, maybe I can do this or cannot do this, and that's the negative language. We're thinking about how can we empower ourselves. People often make their political choices, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, or you decide where you want to spend yourself, your money and your body and your mind, and the choices that one wants to take responsibility for. So this is a very internal process that's happening. Setting sustainability goals, thinking about why one wants to do it and who one wants to do it for. And if we go to the next slide, I would kind of call upon all youngsters to think about just one personal sustainability goal and action it consistently before moving on to the next one. So you might decide that I will stop using reusable coffee cups, and I would take my own coffee cup to Starbucks or go to wherever, or I will stop using plastic bottles. Every time I'm in India, actually, I'm appalled by how many people are handing out plastic bottles. I'm glad this is an online event, because we're being handed out plastic Bisleri bottles almost everywhere. I went to a hairdresser and she handed me a Bisleri plastic bottle, and I carry my own bottle. So these are very simple things about changing the steps and the directions in which we want to move. And how do we then communicate these? So we communicate them by these simple steps of, for ourselves or for our teams, communicating micro victories, small things that made a difference, acknowledging the barriers and the contradictions, but not saying, oh, now it's a barrier, I can't change anything about it. So not to become complacent, and thinking about what are the opportunities beyond the barriers, thinking about what are the ways in which I can measure. And for every small, every tiny sustainability goal, one can sit and measure impact and positive change, and then display it and celebrate it. And this is particularly useful when you're in offices and corporate settings where we set a goal as a team and we do it. I spoke to the employees of Puma, which is a big fashion house, of course, and they decided to set up tiny sustainability goals, like basically not using coffee cups, or not having a meat-free day in the office, and things like that. So I think in the Indian context, we are already far ahead. We already have a lot that we can build on, but I think we're not thinking about waste that strongly. So also thinking about strategic communication gaps within an organization. We may not have big gaps that we can control. I mean, large systemic gaps are not in our control, but smaller gaps within teams, within interpersonal, or are possible. If you go to the next slide, and I will try to end soon, just a few more. So within your teams, what are the things that you can do? You can identify the communication gaps, and one thing is about active listening. So always to tune in and listen rather than talk. If you notice, we always talk to be heard. And when we are listening to someone, we're also at that same time thinking about what we're going to say next. So that is not active listening. And to avoid a culture or a climate of silence, because in an organization particularly, this leads to organizational silence, which then leads to a lack of building of community and values. As managers, encourage feedback. Do not fear negative feedback. Create spaces for this kind of dissent and informal, constructive discussion. Connect beyond work. So roping in people to execute and action their values beyond work, and asking about their futures and linking the actions that the company takes to those futures. Using humor, we find a lot of climate communication researchers found that humor is amazing in times of conflict and uncertainty. So in fact, we have a lot of stand-up even around climate change now. So maybe companies could bring in and talk about uncomfortable topics like, say, meat eating, or topics like waste reduction, or even circularity, or even this idea of buying something new all the time, by just bringing in someone and addressing those in a humorous manner. And at the very end, of course, we create communities of practice and these knowledge networks, and we create peer groups where people can support each other, because nothing can work in communication without active support around you. If we go to the next slide, we think about what do you do with communication and behavior change. So behavior change and communication are actually absolutely linked. They're interlinked concepts. Successful communication leads to intended behavior change. And one-off actions are, say, communication, but prolonged, repeated actions are behavior change. And an example is when you have a campaign for waste management, it's a form of communication, but behavior changes, sorting of waste by citizens is a consistent practice. So I don't know how many of you have heard of plogging, which is a combination of jogging and plocka. It's a Swedish term for pick up. And this started in Sweden in 2016. It's a fitness fad. And actually people carried it forward around the world. And in Bangalore, there was an entire Bangalore-based bloggers made it to the Guinness Book of World Records, because they collected some 33,000 something kgs of plastic in a 12-hour organized drive of plogging, where they are running, jogging, and picking up waste as they are jogging. So these are sustained behavior change kind of activities that are possible for waste reduction and circular economy. And to remember that, human-centered design, everything that is this idea of blogging or this idea of changing behavior is very human-centered. We must remember that the environment doesn't need saving. We are the ones who need saving. The environment will be just fine. The earth will freeze over or burn over and we will be destroyed. It's the human race, but it's us who need saving. So when we're talking about behavior change, we're talking about saving ourselves, and we're talking about these aspects. Meet people where they are, speak to their situation, and design human-centric ways of communication. As tribes, we're humans, we're tribes. We're not meant to be in formalized environments. We should sit in a circle, create a space for play, for discussion, for actual engagement. Focus on how we are framing a problem. Are we framing it in a blame oriented manner, or are we framing it in a can do, we're in this collaborative manner? Context is everything. What works in the Netherlands for me may not work in India. So it has to be evidence informed policy making, decision making, and evidence from the cultural, local, actual context. And I'm going to leave you with if we go to the next slide, EAST framework. This was developed by the Behavioral Insights team in the UK. And they actually use this as a very common way of communicating behavior change approaches. And there are 4 components, and I'll just talk about each one of these. So when you think about easy is about harnessing the power of default. So make something that you communicate, or make something that is actionable, easy to do. So we have a strong tendency to go with what is a default option, like I gave the plastic water bottle example. So instead of leaving plastic water bottles everywhere or disposable cups, we could leave reusable material, bottles and so on, which people can use. So it should be on the go. We adopt it easily. Reduce the hassle factor of taking up service. So the effort that is required to perform an action puts people off. We need to reduce the effort that people need to make. Simplify messages. This is about making it easy. Make the message clearer so that people are able to actually respond to it. We find that when a message is very complex, we need to break it down into too many parts, and that's too much cognitive effort. So make it very simple. Make something attractive, attract attention. So when, and this is where we use a lot of celebrities, or we use a way of, bringing attention to a problem, use of images, color, or personalization. Remember, even more than celebrities, the real thing that is attractive is about the kind of personalization, the stories, the kind of story that you started with, because we can relate to it. You cannot relate to a big actor or an actress. You can relate to something that you do. And to make it attractive, it's also about financial incentives, other kinds of incentives. So lotteries or some kind of, human-based incentive, being the champion of something or being a sustainability ambassador. And finally, the last 2, social and timely. So if we make a desired behavior social, we create situations in which people are able to do something. We use the power of networks where we can foster collective action, and we make people make a commitment, setting goals and commitments, and then publicly following up on them is very effective for behavior change. And timely. Choose a time when people are most receptive. If something major has happened, if there's a crisis and we say, oh, tomorrow we're going to make this shift, it's not going to happen. We have to have people's attention when they are receptive, when they are ready to change, when habits are already in the sense or in the flow of being disturbed into something else or being regenerated into something else. Consider costs and benefits. Most people consider the costs and benefits later. So they take something that is immediately doable and they want immediate costs and benefits. So we need to alter our message in a way that supports that and help people plan their response to events. So people need to be given proven solutions that helps them actually say, okay, this is going to work, so I will do it. And if we can just move forward to the last slide, I just want to thank you for your attention. We already have covered this. Just to and next, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mittal. In fact, very interesting presentation, and I have some, remarks. I personally liked your stories that began from your home, right? So sustainability is actually a personal story, and a leader I have seen, who has been culturally raised in such a manner, in a sustainable manner. In the organization also, he or she behaves like that. So I think it has got a lot to do with, how we raise our kids and how we have been raised. And many stories we all know, but you said that now we have to set goals. in the previous times we did not have these goals. That was the by default way of living, like sharing your books with your siblings, sharing your clothes with your siblings, and so the habit of sharing it with the community, with the family, and other things. So I think we have to get back to that culture rather than I think it is more than setting the goals. So that has to be the way of living rather than a particular way to practice sustainability. I think I also liked your interventions about the celebrities, but here I differ from your opinion that there are many celebrities. I heard a news of all Hollywood celebrities going to an island to discuss climate change in their private jets. So that is the news that I did not like. So maybe we have to create celebrities out of the community, out of those those change makers who do it themselves. So I like your idea of sustainability ambassadors. I think that's more important. So we have to become celebrities rather than emulating those unsustainable models. I'm not going into detail, but I think Dr. Sodi has something to say in this regard. Yes, please, over to you.
Carry on.
Can I
Dr.
just comment?
Mittal.
Please? Yes, just quickly comment, and I completely agree with you. Yeah, and that's why I said that more than celebrities, personal stories are what touch you because you can relate to them. We actually cannot relate to celebrities in the long run. It's a nice advertising, but that's it. And then when there's greenwashing, which often happens, like you said, celebrities talk about this and that, and then they are all flying in their private jets. So the common man is more and more disenfranchised. We cannot then relate to the idea that we can bring about big change because these people. Yeah, so
Nice,
that's
nice.
yeah.
And thank you so much. In fact, we have to do a lot in this area. I'm glad that researchers like you are already working, and in India also we have to, as academicians, we have to promulgate this research ahead. So now may I request Dr. Sodi for his interventions, please. He has been quietly listening to the stories and other points. Yes.
Well, thank you, Dr. Narula. Can you hear me? Clear? Okay. I can see the nods going on, so that affirms me that I can start. Well, good morning, friends and fellow panelists. We have had some 3 interventions including Mr. Dr. Sapna on circularity in action, which is the topic. Once again, it's a great pleasure to be with you all and talk about things. We are people who are very passionate working in this domain of universe. We are passionate in our own ways, and that brings us to commonalities. But a commonality in circularity, we have heard a lot about it, is all about resource management. That is about circularity. All the 3 previous speakers have been talking, and many others who will be coming in to speak and at different forums is all about materials. How judiciously you can respect the use of materials, because the resources are finite and life is also finite. But there are 2 views. I'll not get into it. And the second aspect of resources when we are managing is how much we are talking about really the waste happening out of this, whether it's a primary or a secondary material. Dr. Mittal talked about various stories and examples. But today the lifestyle has changed. It has changed to overconsumption. And when you are having idling of resources or materials, that is also not a good step in circular economy. Say, for example, idling of resources does not only mean that materials which are going in for manufacturing. Idling of resources are in the form of services, in the form of processes. In our own house, we may have 50 shirts, and out of that 50 shirts, we are hardly using 15 of them, and the next 20. And out of that, 55 have never been used also. They are just lying unused. We got it or we bought it. There can be many fundamentals around it. And that idling, it's better to give in some, because idling of resources ends up money locked up, and capital can be judicially used otherwise. It is the same way in cars. We keep on reading that, we have about 100, 1 crore or 100 lakhs of vehicles running in Delhi, 50% are lying parked. So that is a very tremendous resource like idled off. And therefore, the story of circular economy is not about people. It's all about nations, any age group, caste, creed. It is all about judicial use of resources. Now, if we go to the other aspects, there are many aspects which the previous three speakers have touched: reuse, let me come up to couple of 2-3 aspects. One is redesign. We have been hearing a lot about redesign. What do we mean by redesign? We are having a bottle of water, and I work a lot on plastics, and a bottle of water is having 3 different materials on it. There is HDP, there is PP, and there is PET, which is the bottle itself, and PP is the or PVC. Now we have moved from PVC to PP or PPE, which is the covering, which gives us basically gives us the information or labeling about the product. The third is about the cap, which is of a high density polyethylene. So when we are redesigning the things, we have to look 3-4 aspects into it. And I have learned it by doing and listening with people like yourselves who are there. One is, of course, the whole aspect of packaging is to protect the product. That is one aspect. But second aspect is about its attractiveness and cost effectiveness, because attractiveness gives you marketability. But over and above that, we have to think 3 more things which are very important. One is the collection easily possible? Is the segregation possible? And is it recyclable? Now, I have been in various committees. Thanks for the kind words, Dr. Narula, for introducing me. When I was in UNDP, the circular economy in 2014-15, when I started talking about it, I was trying to understand what is it. And one of the functions I very vividly remember in 2019-18, in Delhi, on a big forum, I was then in UNDP, and they asked me, Mr. Sodhi, we have to ask you one question. And that person was himself organizing the workshop. He said, it is a Western phenomena. And what are your impressions about it? So I was pretty taken aback, firstly, because he was the organizer. I had to be very, very respectful, I would say. And I said, sorry, sir, I beg to differ with you. It is simply not a Western phenomena. All it is packaged in an English word, which we are finding it a misrepresentation. It is said as circular economy, which we never heard about it. Or what does it mean? And I just said what I said and what the other speakers, it's all about using judiciously, no wastage, and using it back again to extend the life. We have got so many firms now. The beauty of the human is, because it has a mind, it can express one word into different ways. And that's the beauty of a human. And that's why it differs from, and that's why it develops. So anyway, cut that story out. There was a big laugh with about 200 people sitting there. And I started to explain him it's simply not a phenomena which is taken from either east, west, or north, south. It is a human tendency which has been cultured over the years, as it was said in various stories. So I don't want to repeat. And finally, we agreed, and that man said, sir, I wanted to ignite you. I said, that's fine. You've done your job, and I'm feeling very confident that what I said is acceptable. So coming to it, again, redesigning 3 aspects: collection, segregation, and recycling. I was in the committee I will not say where and what, but there was a point of introduction of compostable plastic bags. And I was vehemently opposing that. I said, we are going from one problem to the other. The thickness of the bag, if it is 50 microns thickness, then it is a 1 kg bag. will have only 3 to 4 grams weight. And in 1 kilo, you have to pick up, I don't know how many, 400 bags, and nobody can pick it humanly. And it's never going to be picked up. And for 20 rupees, the person is not going to be paid off. And no, these compostable bags, these are very compostable, blah, blah, they will be written on it. I said, the person who is collecting, unfortunately, is not well read. And in the bag, you have put in a very small line, these are compostable bags. And they tear up faster because we have a very high good carrying capacity systems in our human culture, that if a bag can hold 1 kg, we will try and put 3 kgs in it, and the bag is going to break. So these sort of, when we are working in these dichotomous systems, it becomes very difficult to really introduce a one fit for all. That's why it is said that it cannot be one fit for all. Nonetheless, I stuck to myself and I said it cannot be allowed. No, we have done tests and we have to put a little bit of this and then it degrades and this and this. I said that little bit of this which needs to be put into it in the form of an enzyme or whatever is not available every place where you are going to have these bags collected. If at all you want to introduce, then you have to come with an international color coding. That means if you want light pink, then there will be only compostable bags in light pink. No other bag can be produced on light pink. And there are international color codes to it. Anyway, it was accepted, it was not accepted, it was rejected. I don't have the power of the strong voice in the medium of influence, but nonetheless, it carries on and it will carry on till we don't have a very, very strong way of doing things. The other thing which I don't want to go on to say that how we collect our newspapers, how we collect our other things which have value, and we dispose them and we haggle them for 2 rupees with that poor person. So price does not differentiate incomes. The price is influenced by a human behavior, which was very aptly, beautifully pointed out. So we have to understand that anything which is valuable, and that is circular economy. Circular economy, whether it extends life, it is putting value to the waste, so-called, or people are saying it's a misplaced resource. But coming back to after the designing aspect, I want to touch base another challenge. Why circular economy in India is becoming so very relevant today is for the fact that in 2018, government had already realized, or 2016, when the new rules were formed, and 2016 was a very path-breaking year because many rules were created around it, around various material consumption, and that's when the Niti Aayog started to put in that committees will be put on 11 sectors, and luckily, as it is, I enjoyed learning as I was a part of all the 11 committees across the sectors. Never knew what is used oils, but of course was knowing the concept. So the point which I was trying to bring it here is that the challenge on extraction is the linear economy, the extraction, use, make and throw. You keep on extracting and you keep on building and then you just keep on throwing. So we have to move from an extractive to a regenerative economy, because in India, it will be, many of you will know it, the extraction rate per acre is about 16-20 tons in India, and which is 4 times the rate of world average, which is 480 tons per acre. And India is fast using its resources. Now, the government is very strongly building in. There are many ways of building the ways how to handle about circular economy. We are knowing extended producer responsibility. The country systems have really studied that, and I must compliment the government of India through your channel, is that they are looking as EPR, extended producer responsibility, where producers, importers, and brand owners are responsible to collect back whatever material they bring in the market so that it can be given a better life, better recyclability can happen, and extended life can happen over a period of time. So that is one way of doing. And when you are doing EPR, way the practices followed are when the management of the resource is in the hands of the PIBOs, or the producers, importers, and brand owners, and their responsibility is also for its regeneration. These are countries like European Union, Brazil, Korea, and India has also followed suit in most of the materials. But there are other systems also available. In the when we were drafting all these, we were studying these systems. The other system is the tax system, where the responsibility shifts from producer to the government. In that case, a government fixes a price, and the producers, brand owners are supposed to pay that cess or tax or a levy, and then that responsibility becomes of the government. That is a second way of doing, and that is carried out in USA, Canada, Denmark, and many other countries. There is a third way still being used as a system, which is known as a free market system. What is a free market system is that when you form a legislation and you bring the objectives of what the achievements needs to be done with a clear measurability, traceability, and transparency, the bodies tend to emerge. There is a legislation made, the government has done its job by articulating enough on that and bringing all those issues through different stakeholders. And then the designated bodies and institutions are coming up which are specialized, and then they are being evaluated under various parameters by the government in order to really discharge the functions, which is happening in Germany, in Austria, in United Kingdom, and Switzerland. So, there are ways of handling and in enhancing circular economy beyond the emotional way. There has to be a technical, technological, systemic way where we have to bring this system. Anyway, these are three aspects. So I was talking about regeneration. I was talking about the different aspects of how the technology needs to be tenured. The third aspect which I want to bring is on the resource use. In 20s, when I was giving grants in UN, I was handling the small grants which Terry is now doing for the UNDP GEF, and Government of India Ministry of Environment and Forest is the anchor ministry, and the political ministry is DEA, Department of Economic Affairs. We wrote a book called Low Carbon Lifestyle. It is all verified. It is nothing but text available in it. Simple things we will have to fix in what were being discussed. And simple things, the other day I was measuring water. I saw a tap leaking in my office and everybody's passing, and I left that day. Next day I said, you would not believe that 1 drop of water per second per tap is equivalent to 20 ml in 1 liter in 1 minute. 20 ml in 1 minute. And can you beat, if you multiply the number of minutes and number of hours in a day, it comes to 28 liters of water lost. And you put a tap open and your whole bucket will be full by the end of the day, and next day morning you will see the bucket overflowing. So these simple things also, we are not able to take the onus of responsibility. There are hundreds of examples which we will have. We are going on a lift, which prompted me to write this book was, I go to the lift, I press this also and I press this also. I want to go up, but I press down, low, and I rush to take the first one. And this is the most serious of the class, which is highly empowered, well educated, but still using a simple lift. It is not working on, my dear friend, on water. It is working on electricity. 16 people. We want to rush ourselves, press the button. Even the second person is waiting. I am gone. To hell with it. So, those are the calculations we really need to understand. And mind you, 3 floors going up, no problem. You can test your heart muscles and see that if you can go 3 floors comfortably, that is the ideal cutoff. Whether it's an ideal cutoff of 16 seconds on the traffic lights, why the light buttons are put there 1 second, 2 seconds is to have a cutoff point. 16 seconds is a cutoff point. If you are below 16 seconds, don't switch off. If you are above 16 to 18 seconds, please switch off the vehicle. people switch off the vehicles. And I think so that's the brilliant thing. I'm reminded of that lady who is no more, was the chief minister of Delhi. And I used to go and talk to her many number of times, and she would admirably listen. And that gave me the entry into walking into people's thoughts. Now, idling, I already said, machines, services, inputs. We should avoid idling of resources, because the other thing which has come up, I was seeing the third, Government of India in the last 7 years have taken some immaculate steps, and institutions like Terry and so forth, and people all associated are playing a very big role. There is a new act which has come into picture, the act of repairability. We have never still thought that the people who are repairing are all left to market-based resources. Yesterday, the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, said it very strongly that the people of the economic poverty will be given better loans at better prices. The poor repair shops, we want to haggle with them when they are restitching our clothes, or they are repairing our watch or our cycle. Why cannot these be taken as dignified, responsible actions into the domain of circular economy? These are really helping us to practice that, extending the life of it. We have never changed our watches. Now, in that second act of repairability is that if I take this watch, which I am using myself, because at the behest of my family, which says कि नहीं आपको देखना है कि how much you are walking, how much is your blood pressure, and God knows what. So I said, okay, fine. I very much value this, but this is useless. This is absolutely useless because it has got no repairability. Today, the government has put in action that very soon the people who are bringing acts like various products, I don't want to take the names, is that they will have to give their entire sheets of how the repairability will happen. Every time I buy a phone, I don't have to buy its wire, which is only available in that phone, and it is very expensive. So the act of repairability is leading us, that is going to have a profound change in the lives of people using resources. So the other aim, I keep on thinking all the time, Dr. Narula, Radhika, Shubham, Stephen, and Amit, seeing you after a very long time, is a tremendous cheer, The other act which has come is the Green Credit Program. The recent notification of July on the Green Credit Program is a path-breaking. People tend to jump to conclusions without reading the contents of the thing. That is what the brightness of life is. We buy a refrigerator, we buy a washing machine, we do not see, where do you switch it on and where do you switch it off? Where is the regulator? I know the refrigerator. I know how to switch it on, I know how to switch it off, and that's all the refrigerator is used for. Without understanding how much the temperature should be there, what is the regulation of temperature already when the machine is given to me, whether I really need the drying to be hot or whether I need a cold cycle of the water in washing machines, how am I washing and where am I throwing the microplastic which is getting closed in the machine. I can talk to you hundreds of these examples, but I love the way Radhika said on the easy to do, attractive, and simplifications. We tend to make our life complex and then we love solving it and we say, oh, I've done a great puzzle. We can have it very simple, but we tend to make it very, very difficult. The last bit I will focus, if I have 2-3 more minutes, Sapna.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Okay. The last thing which I want to say about things is how I really see my journey, that over the last 40 years, I did a study on packaging of flowers in plastics. Way back in the middle of 90s, I used to live in east of Kailash, and in Lajpat Nagar, the flowers were never packaged. And then one day I said to that guy, You have started packaging them in the newspaper. Now that is not fair. Now you have started packaging them into plastic. I took two young boys and one girl from an institute and asked them to do. I was handling the grants program, so I said, I'll pay you some money, but I want this to be done and I want myself to be associated. Would you not believe the same flower which is being sold in Delhi at 5 o'clock in Connaught Place is picked up by different vendors for different categories of income categories of people. That same flower is sold in Khan Market for 20 rupees, in Lajpat Nagar for 2 rupees, and in other uptake markets in Chanakyapuri maybe 10 rupees. So the basic fundamental is that a person has come to realize how to maximize profits, and that greed of profiteering is leading to consumerism, and that consumerism is leading to our consumption of resources, and consumption of resources is leading to higher mining of resources, and there is very limited thing which is going around. So I think so this is a very cyclic process. We do not need to get awestruck by it that this is happening and this is not happening, but we have to really ensure what is my contribution into the system, and what have I done to change the system in terms of measurability, in terms of traceability, in terms of transparency in all aspects of dealing. I'll just close it by saying that I manage plastics, and plastic is not a bad thing at all. Please. I do not say that plastic is a bad thing. I often keep hearing that PET bottles are not good. PET bottle is not a problem. PET bottle, in fact, 95% collected. It has a very high value. PET is the highest paid plastic form. So PET is easily recyclable, has a high value. So giving a bottle in PET is not a problem, but taking it over and over again is a problem. And I do fundamentally agree that we should have bottles which are made of steel and should be used, or whatever, aluminiums. But plastic is not a bad thing. Let's not polish away with plastic as a bad material by putting shade to our habits, which are extremely bad and vulnerable. We believe in littering. It really agonizes me when I see people littering. I cannot understand why people have to litter. Why can't they hold their waste into their own pocket?
Thank you. Brilliant, Dr. Sodhi. In fact, he has been a key person in the area of circular economy in India, and his thoughts are really very path-breaking. In fact, what I gather from Dr. Sodhi's intervention is that marketing has been one of the culprits, right? So from Radhika's presentation, we could find that we need ambassadors and celebrities from the community, and marketing has been the culprit. So I think we also have to rethink about the way we are going to make profits and the way we are going to market our products, whether it is the flowers or the refrigerators or FMCG or any other thing. So with these words, although a lot of discussion can be done from the points that Dr. Sodhi made, but I would not take much of your time. Now it is time to invite our chief guest, Professor Nava Subramaniam, who is currently the Dean of Amrita Business School. Nava has held lot of nationalities. I would not like to go into detail, but very emotional relationship that I have with Professor Nava Subramaniam, that of a mentor, that of a educator, and Professor Nava Subramaniam worked throughout her life in Australia, and we are so glad that to revolutionize the business education in India, she has entered India after 40 years. While I work from Bihar, that it's very difficult for a Delhi guy to live in Bihar. Similarly, I know that it's very difficult for an Australian guy to live in the heart of South India, that is Coimbatore. So first of all, I would like to thank her for coming here and, mentor young academicians, deans like us. Professor Nawa, we are very thankful to you, and your research has inspired many young academicians. It is very much known through her Google Scholar, or if you just Google, you will find the path-breaking research in almost every established journal she has published. So, Professor Nawa, the floor is yours. I would like you to declare this event open for GNSD as the chief guest of the event and present your views on circular thinking. Thank you.
Yes. All right. So thank you so much. I'm once again very sorry for the technical issues we've been having, so basically, firstly, I'd like to thank Sapna for this invitation. Sapna, it is a joy for me to be in India. A lot of my friends in Australia have been asking what's it like, and I tell them that I feel like I'm home. So my parents are actually South Indian, so I speak the local lingo, and I think that really helps. Having said that, I know we are we are time bound, and I've been sitting here intently listening to everyone. So before I formally start, I would like to pay my respects to my guru, Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi. I'm very blessed to be here working at Amrita University that Amma guides us through. She has been the chair of the C20 in the G20 program in India. Also, I think Amma herself is a wonderful, her guidance is a wonderful exemplar for all of us here at Amrita University to be in our own way, each of us in our own way, championing the sustainable development journey. Having said that, it is, with utmost pleasure that I would, like to acknowledge the start of the opening inauguration of the circular economy, rethinking sustainability and resource management, Changemaker 20 Summit, and once again the leadership of Dr. Sapna Narula and her team, on all the esteemed speakers this morning. We are also proud of the start of this journey here. When I heard about the Changemaker 20, I felt like this is so timely and so relevant, happening this year under India's G20 presidency. As I said, that I know time is, we are challenged by time. And so not only we are, but so is the whole sustainability challenge that we have, in front of us. And of course, the salience of today's topic on circularity and circular economy, in as they say, has been made loud and clear. Yes, it's moving now. So this is here a very much a depiction in a very short one slide about the impacts we are facing right now. There is firstly, we've all heard about deforestation impact. The lost area is the equivalent to 420 million hectares in 30 years. This has happened, which is apparently the size of a country like Iraq. Soil degradation, nearly 50% of Earth's soil severely degraded, and fish stock threat, 85% of global fish stocks face collapse. Wildlife decline, dropped by 70% in 50 years. It's quite shocking. And of course, the balancing act, which all of us have this morning, many of you, have enunciated this, Dr. Sodhi as Dr. Mittal. And so no doubt that we are facing an existential crisis. And I think we are, as they say, many of us feel like we are these frogs sitting in a hot saucepan, slowly being boiled. We don't know. We are flipping and doing bits and pieces. But are we doing enough? Are we doing enough? If you looked at climate change, definitely not. Recently, we have the study by some researchers, well-known researchers, Stephen Lade, and a team of researchers, and they have basically said that we need to refine or redefine, I should say, planetary boundaries. So all of us, I think, have heard about the 9 planetary boundaries. These are the most challenging areas where we seem to be pulled out, from what the earth can, the world, the earth, the globe can sustain. And we are in dangerous zone in just about all of them. But what the current thinking, as this report basically came out a few weeks ago, where the thinking is we need to redefine and look at countries and what can develop countries do, the North versus the South. And so the North-South issue is still there. It's about the law of, equity, the philosophy of what you're going to bring. Everybody does, but can some people do more than others? What should they be doing? So this whole, I think, as we go forth, we need to think about equity. The debates are going to happen. Why the debates are going to happen? It's going to be divisive. Why it's going to be? Because resources are finite, and our poor little brains don't understand that, as much as it's shouted from every corner that we have limited, finite resources. Does not seem to sink in for many people. Now, I think a lot of our discussion so far has been on the individual level. Dr. Mittal, love that your discussion around having the right dialogue or conversation. The communication has to be as truthful, communicative. The message has to be clear. It has to be emotive, yet it has to drive people into action. I still remember I grew up with 6 boys. I have 6 brothers. And so I didn't have the luxury of getting a hand-me-down from an older sister, but I decided I'll wear boys' clothes for a few years, actually. So there it is, it's there naturally in maybe my age group, showing my age here. But increasingly that, acquire, use, and dump sort of culture that perhaps our children are getting more used to. You can just go around the corner and buy another t-shirt, buy another something. That is that consumerism, that mentality. How do we change? So some of the things that I think in the next short 10, 15 minutes I have will kind of more address the larger, what can G20 nations do together, right? What can we do at a larger macro level? So to understand that, I think that to have a dialogue around that, we do need to look at some figures such as, the material extractive, trends, the issue, as I said, of equity between high and low income countries, and addressing the circularity gap, we need to, I think, refine our own inquiry into it as academic researchers, industry, people, experts who are concerned about, circularity. We need to get at a much more granular level, looking at the sectors, the industries, the regions. Some of the debate we've had so far in this session has been about localization versus globalization. So it is like traffic going different ways, right? Opposite ways, So the way we localize the value of circularity versus the way we globalize the value of, circularity needs to be rethought. And voices, and coming from, and I've worked with the CH20 group quite a lot in this last 6 months, you can see civil society has a lot to offer, both in terms of localization as well as globalization of, circularity and various other social issues. So we need to turn our attention to how much are we empowering the local person. Yes, we can put a bucket and catch some water or try to stop the tap from leaking. But whose job is it? Who's accountable for that tap to stop leaking? I might skip some of the slides because of time, and I just want to make sure that I'm sharing the messages, the main key messages that I had in my mind to do today. So when Sapna asked me to, invited me to for this session, the idea was, that I talk a little bit more around the G20. What can G20 do, or what should they be doing really? So we know that at that larger G20 nations level, the whole circularity agenda is needs to be driven by technological advancement as well as collective action. So to do this, there are at least 5 things that the G20 areas that the G20 needs to do more work on, which is improving transparency and accountability. The second being, supporting business model innovations and ecosystem that would allow startups, that will enable new ideas to be formed and funded and researched upon. Technology and knowledge sharing hubs, improving funding opportunities, and also last but not least, as reflecting SDG 16, which is a critical, SDG where multi-sector, multilateral partnerships are needed. So what have the G20 themselves done? I think Shubham, you also gave some very good points, and this is just a quick key highlight over the timeline. And some key, initiatives. So in 2017, we know Germany started the whole resource efficiency dialogue, that was launched. And then in 2019, Japan, launched in the G20 meeting information portal for G20 Red. And then in 2020 in Saudi Arabia, the G20 endorsed the circular carbon economy platform with its 4 framework of reduce, reuse, recycle, and remove. And also in 2021, the Italy, focused or honed in on finance and technology. So the focus was that very much how do we enable SDG 12, which is sustainable consumption and production. So for each of these, I won't go very much in detail. I'd rather have a dialogue at the end of my session, really, which, Sapna, I think I've got another 5 minutes left, is it?
Professor Nawab.
Okay, so improving transparency and accountability. One of the areas we have already touched upon is the transparency of how circular is circular for a product or a service starts with consumer awareness, right? As well as the EPRs we talked about, extended producers' responsibility. However, the G20 nations, I would think, would need to, are placed well, I would say, rather than need to actually start experimenting with some more public-private partnerships. This needs to be industry-led. And we know there is, someone in the question session had asked, how can sustainability align with profitability? It is almost a little bit passé, that question, I feel, because the minute we've put ourselves sustainability versus profitability, we have dichotomized the debate. What we really need to do is find the value of profitability within sustainability. And I think quite a number of companies have been doing that well. And people need to understand making a profit is not the real issue. It is what you do in making the profit and what do you do with the profit. That is absolutely critical. These are value-based in many ways, debates and discourses, I believe, that we need to have as we go forth. Let me move to the next one, business model innovations. Once again, we always work with this, currently we are bounded by the typical business model of, capitalistic business model. There are shareholders, there are IPOs, there are, all sorts of financial instrumentation where it is to grow, and grow the profitability, the bottom line as well. But the sharing economy, the sharing accountabilities remain still fairly ill-defined. I think in India we have lots of opportunities where the communities have many good examples of how they have those non-market economies happening. Now, how can we build that better? We're going back to, there's a lot of interest in how to make cooperatives more efficient and, accountable and effective. In India, there are some excellent examples. So I think for academic researchers and policy makers, these are conversations that needs to happen and led by the G20 nations. Technology and knowledge sharing hubs, yes, absolutely, needed, not only needed, essential. And as I said, I have in the last 6 months as one of the national coordinators of the working group titled Technology, Security and Transparency, been having many conversations with various parts, or with civil society organizations. And one of the major threats we find that is perceived by quite, sort of pretty much almost 99% of the people that we've spoken to is fake news. So knowledge sharing hubs are important, but what are we sharing? What is the credibility of the research data that's given to us as evidence? Increasingly, AI, artificial intelligence, is shaping our world, shaping our thinking, and most importantly, shaping our future. So when it comes to developing and supporting proper green supply chains and building a circular economy requires technology that is based on data that is reliable and relevant. I don't think I need to say much about funding opportunities, except it's just the bloodline for all things that we want to create, all things we want to build. There is a diverse financial mechanisms have been sprout, green bonds, impact investors abound, access to, de-risked or shared information on financing, circularity, and resource efficiency type of projects. But once again here, what pops up is that tension, the natural tension between profitability and what is good for the environment or what is good for the communities. So this is an area I think that is also closely linked with technology, and we need to see G20 countries investing because they are our topmost economies in the world. So affordability by the developed countries versus those who are developing. And last but not least, multi-sectoral, multilateral partnerships. Within this is embedded, there are many things I can talk about here, but within here is embedded a very critical question, which is culture and values. In India, at a national level, we have this fantastic, what shall I say, ecosystem or a environment where we have so many different cultural, ethnic groups, religious groups coming together with different sets of values as to how do we live, sharing, the value of sharing, the value of no waste. I have a dad who lived through World War II, and he would not waste. He'd help me, come to the kitchen and sometimes wash up dishes. And he'd pick every tiny grain of rice and save it to give it to the birds. And, we used to fight, I used to say, but you're wasting so much water, like this is my sustainability head, right? And then he'd be going, yes, but this is food, that you need, that can help other lives. So it's those sort of values, it comes together. Everybody wants to do good, but what is the, ultimate good? You need to sort it out in having those dialogues. And last but not least, take action. Yes, from the individual person to the communities, to the cities, and throughout the country, the value of reduce, regenerate, and redistribute. And so thank you to, Dr. Mittal, Radhika. You had some, I think we started with really a big key to a lot of the issues you're facing, which is have the right conversations and have the story told right. So thank you, everyone. I shall stop there and take some questions now.
Thank you so much, Professor Nava Subramaniam, for an interesting talk on circular thinking and declaring this session open. And in fact, we started late and we had some technical glitches, but I think the session is going very well, and a lot of recommendations that are coming out of this session will be presented to the government as part of the C20 working group. Now may I request Dr. Amit Tuteja, who has been who has conceptualized this entire event and who has partnered with GNSD for this particular theme.
Thanks a lot, Sapna ma'am, and good morning, everyone. I'm really honored to be part of this panel. I may not be the expert who can talk about circularity, but I can give you some examples that we have been working on. It's really nice to hear all these examples from Dr. Radhika Mittal, sir, and Nava ma'am. It's been a really wonderful journey, the kind of examples we have used and how we could relate that to the practical evidences out there. So what I'll do is very shortly, because time is a little short, I'll very shortly share my screen and show you a small case study how youth can contribute towards sustainability and towards creating those mechanisms where livelihood and circularity can go hand in hand. And there was a question around profitability, so I'll be touching that base as well. So I'll just share my screen, not take a long time, but if it's visible.
Amit, as a moderator, I have every right to ask you how much time you will take.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll try and be as short as possible, but I'll show you some pictures in the background. So this is a picture of a women group in a village near Delhi, near Hapur. This particular group used to make something called cloth bags. You would have seen something like this. So the SHG group or the self-help group have been making cloth bags for some years. This particular, so I'll be using some numbers along with it. There'll be pictures in the background, but there'll be some numbers. So this particular cloth bag generally sells for around 20 to 21 rupees in the market. All right. So a group of women used to make these bags. Out of those 21 rupees, the raw material cost is 12 rupees for the bag. Okay. And then there is also transportation cost. End of the day, they were able to make 5 to 6 rupees per bag maximum, right? Even if they make say like 50 to 60 bags a day, the kind of money they are making is very, very, very less, right? So this was the problem. So we connected this group and a problem with a group of students, very enthusiastic students. We call them change makers. And this is a story from little past where a group of students from LSR college. So we have a chapter or change maker lab in LSR college. So we took this problem to LSR, and we find these wonderful girls who led this project later on. But these group of students came with this problem and said that how can we help them? How can we first increase their livelihood? Second, how can we reduce the cost of manufacturing in some way or the other? Along with this, there was also a problem parallelly. There were a lot of flex banners around. Okay, these are just representative pictures. They're not the real pictures from that time, but I've just taken it from that. So there were a lot of flex banners around that are used during elections just at that time. So what happened when this came in? They were also doing a drive where they collected almost like 100 kgs of flex banners, unused flex banners. That is also a challenge because it is very difficult to decompose like them as well, right? So what these people thought, and after we did a lot of process, design thinking, ideation, we figured out, can we use the material of flex as the inner material for bags? Can we create some bags out of those flex banners that can be reused again and again for certain duration? And can that help reduce the cost of the bag manufacturing, right? So this was the idea, and they did some pilot, and they came out with something like this. Okay, we got in touch with some exporters, we got in touch with some designers, and they helped us create certain designs. The cloth that you can see on the top is taken, which is a used cloth, the waste or the surplus cloth that comes out of the export houses. We use that. The inner lining of all these bags are flex banners, all the bags, and then you have some accessories that are used. Now this bag, when they just did a small flea market within the college, the minimum cost that they were getting for each of these bags was 200 rupees as compared to 21 rupees before, right? That's a difference that came in. And the cost of making these bags was less than the cost of making that particular bag that they were making as a cloth bag. So now you see the cost of manufacturing has gone down. The profits have gone up almost like 10 times for these women. Even if they're making 3 to 4 bags, their earnings from 2,000 rupees per month have gone to 8 to 10,000 rupees per month. And that's how this cycle started. Okay, now, even after 7 to 8 years of this particular project, it is still going on. It's a registered project within this college. Some of these girls have now taken it up as full-time occupation, and many more women are getting employed because of this particular initiative. So this is just an example and a case study where I really want to show how students or youth can contribute towards sustainability, towards circularity, and also keep in mind the livelihood perspective as well, because especially when we talk about people below poverty line, the main thing that they have to consider is how can they make sure they have good quality education for their kids, and they can have good meal, 3 times meal a day. So this is something if we can take care of and then plan, because there is no point going to a people who do not have enough food in his plate and talk about circularity to them. They first of all, they'll have to talk about how can we live our life better. Okay, so this is something we are trying as an organization. There have been many projects. There is a wonderful project that's going on in Hansraj College, where these students have started a project with a local organization called SIGBRA, where they're using unused or used cigarette butts and then processing them and using the cotton out of it to make pillows, make stuffed toys, and a lot of stuff. So they collect almost like every day, more than 150 kgs of cigarette butts are collected from the vendors, and they are being processed. And again, the livelihood is generated. So we always make sure when these change makers are involved, they do take care of the livelihood, because even if they leave the livelihood, the moment livelihood comes in, the sustainability stays there. So we always feel that sustainability can only come in when there is some livelihood incentives for the people to work on it. So this is something that we are bringing in, and I think I've got a lot of ideas today from all of you. I really want to thank each one of you for bringing in such wonderful insights. Dr. Radhika started with that image. I really love the way she started the story and the picture. It was wonderful. And again, Sodhi sir and Awa ma'am, it's been wonderful hearing you all. Thank you, Sapna ma'am, for giving me opportunity to be part of this panel. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit, and thank you all the panelists for a wonderful discussion. When we started, I was not aware that we would be having some very concrete recommendations for the policymakers, and Amit has summed it all, that whatever ideas that we have gained today, that can be really implemented in the field by Connecting Dreams Foundation, by GNSD, and other CSOs. Now, may I request Dr. Stephen Daniel for vote of thanks to all the speakers. Dr. Stephen Daniel, Secretary of the Board of GNSD.
Thank you very much, ma'am. What a lovely discussion and session we've had here this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished panelists, and our esteemed participants, as we draw to a close this insightful panel discussion on the topic of circularity in action, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you. Our esteemed panelists have shared their valuable and invaluable insights, shedding light on narratives and communication as pivotal tools in our journey towards a more circular economy. Their perspective have underscored the need for us to adopt fresh viewpoints, fostering innovative approaches that guide us to a sustainable future. The discourse today has not only deepened our understanding of circularity, but also ignited a collective commitment to embrace change. We now comprehend the power of seeing things through new lenses, harnessing the potential to transform challenges into opportunities. Each narrative we've encountered has acted as a catalyst, propelling us towards meaningful action, where the principles of the circular economy are integrated into our daily lives and practice. Before we conclude today's session, I'm thrilled to announce our initiative that further engages and empowers us to translate circularity into tangible action. We are launching the Circularity in Action quiz and photo competition. It is designed to test and enhance your knowledge of circular economy practice. This is your chance to showcase your understanding and learn even more about this crucial paradigm. The photo competition is an opportunity for you to also capture the essence of circularity through the lens of your camera. Show us how you're putting circular economy principles into practice, whether it's upcycling, sharing, or any other creative implementation that you're undertaking. Your photos will not only inspire others, but will also stand a chance to win exciting prizes from the Global Network for Sustainable Development. Once again, my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelists. Thank you so much for your enlightening contribution, and to all of you, our active participants, for participating in this morning's session. Let us take inspiration we've gained today and infuse it into our actions, making circularity a way of life. Together, we can create a world that is sustainable, resilient, and truly circular. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I again thank all the panelists on behalf of GNSD, and thank you, Stephen. And till we meet again, there are other interesting sessions from GNSD. I would suggest that you also attend those sessions. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.